knec.com. Thanks for joining us again. I'm stoked to talk to Matt Harvey of Gore Metal Masters Exhumed, California Metal. How you doing, brother?
I am doing good. I'm currently driving our van to Portland to play the first show of our little West Coast mini tour with Gruesome, and getting stoked that people are getting to finally hear the new Exhumed record because we recorded it like a year and a half ago. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I'm good.
Very cool. And the new album, To the Dead, that will be out through Relapse Records, a phenomenal label, one of my favorite labels with a bunch of the best bands, coming out October 21st. Are you stoked for the new release?
Yeah, man, it's been a long fucking time coming for us. You know, we started doing the record last April, so yeah, we're more than ready for people to finally hear these songs and to finally be able to go out and play them live.
The album is titled To the Dead. I know we all kind of interpret it our own ways. Is this kind of like an homage to like all the people that have like that we lost in the past, handful of years or something? Or what's the meaning behind the title?
The reason that we picked the title is because it kind of works on multiple levels. The main one, I think, for us is that, when we do our shows and when we hang out and stuff, we think of it as more like it's not like a downer, grim vibe full of hatred or anything like that. Like for us, it's more of a celebratory thing. So we think of it like a toast,
Okay.
And I think that, if you've seen the cover and the layout and stuff, there's kind of like an Art Deco, Roaring '20s, Art Nouveau kind of aesthetic to the whole layout.
Mm-hmm.
And, that now that we're in the 20s again, we're kind of in a similar spot, right after the Spanish flu in the 19-teens and the pandemic now.
Mm-hmm.
And, also there's sort of a lot of uncertainty in the world, and there's a lot of pretty alarming things going on, but yet, the only sane response is to party because, what can you do about it all? So you might as well have a good fucking time while you can. And that's sort of, there's a sort of decadence to the whole vibe of the era and to the record and to, what we do in the band and in the scene in general.
No, of course, and like the last few years have been really tough, and I think a lot of us turned to music, man, to like get us out of a dark spot, and
Oh, fuck yeah.
yeah, and I think a lot of us are still kind of trying to pull ourselves out of there, and I'm glad that we have a lot of new music coming out. A lot of bands are really anxious to like put out new music and hit the road, and you guys are going to tour on this amazing album. I had a chance to listen to it, and it's fucking ripping, bro. It's
Thanks,
ripping.
man. Right on.
The sound is like really like thick and full. Who did you work with? Where did you get this done?
We have our own recording studio in San Luis Obispo, California, not too far from LA or the Bay Area, really, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so we recorded most of everything there. Our guitar player Sebastian also has a studio out in Baltimore where he lives, so he got the remainder of the stuff of like his solos and stuff done out there. We worked with our buddy Alejandro Corredor, who we've worked with, for years now. He's done live sound for us on a million tours. He engineered the last record. So having our own studio between him and the band sort of co-producing, because Ross and Sebastian both do a fair amount of recording and I do a bit as well. So we really had a lot of really hands-on control over everything. And we spent a lot of time trying to not make it sound like every other record out there, because it's easy kind of to get a good sound nowadays. So we wanted to get something that was a little bit unique and something that we don't hear a bunch of other bands, sonically,
Sure.
presenting. So hopefully we
Right.
succeeded,
I think so. Yeah, you don't want it to sound overproduced like a lot of bands are sounding nowadays. And you guys have been around for a good minute, like what, about 30 years, yeah. And you guys, you've seen kind of the change of technology with recording. Like, was that difficult to adapt to?
It's been pretty incremental, and us getting more involved in recording ourselves has also been incremental, and it kind of seems like less of a shock, you know. But I think it's really great, honestly, how accessible recording technology is. You know, because when we started the band, you know, we were dreaming of just making a good sounding record, whereas now that's sort of the baseline. Like, you know, it's like, cool, it's there, the technology and the know-how is there to make it sound good. So then the challenge becomes, now how do you make it sound, you know, distinctive? And so that's what we were able to focus on. You know, we have a lot of fun, you know, in the studio, just fucking both in terms of hanging out and partying, and in terms of, you know, getting into the nitty gritty and, you know, figuring out what kind of microphones and preamps and all that kind of shit. You know, it's a whole deal.
And tell us, what kind of gear are you using? I know we have a lot of gearheads that are interested in to know.
I'm actually the worst person to ask about this. Sebastian and Ross gonna have like a 2-hour conversation about microphones. And the cool thing is, the way that we built the studios, we built it with Alejandro, our engineer. And so, you know, he was, you know, we kind of began with the end in mind, so to speak. Like, all right, what are we trying to do? What are we going to need? And what are the tools that you feel comfortable with and you think, you know, that have been working with the band already? I mean, I just use like a basic ass like Beta 58 for my vocals like that. You know, mine's always sort of, you know, if you can't get something that sounds good out of just a standard setup, then the problem is probably you, not the microphone. But, you know, people that are much more excited about it, much more knowledgeable than I, kind of lay that technical groundwork, and then I produce the tracks and be like, oh no, that take sucks. Do it for the 500th time, kind of thing, you know.
And how long was the writing process before you know, decided to hit the studio?
You know, it didn't seem that long because of the pandemic. You know, usually we're touring a lot and we're doing a lot of shit, and you know, we had some material, but we were really focused on the touring cycle, and then all of a sudden that all went away. And then it was like, well, we have some material, I guess we should work on that. And then, you know, because we had time and because nobody was really doing anything, we got even more people involved in the writing process. We got some former members to write songs. You know, we made sure that Ross and Sebastian both wrote songs, you know, in addition to me, you know, sort of being like the main songwriter, like the Steve Harris or whatever of the band. So we, you know, it was able to come together pretty quickly, like I said, just because most of us didn't really have much else going on. You know, we weren't fucking working. We were just kind of hanging out, like waiting to go back on tour, you know.
Did your tour plans get put on hold? I'm sorry, I don't know if you mentioned that.
Oh yeah, dude. We lost a European tour, a Japanese, Australian, New Zealand tour. I had another U.S. and European tour planned with Gruesome that we lost. So I think like between my various bands, I lost on like 5 tours because of COVID. Damn. So it was you know, it was a forced lifestyle shift. And, I mean, you know, it's honestly, I don't want to complain because so many people went through all kinds of hardship, and I just was forced to stay at home where I have my own fucking recording studio with like 20 guitars and, you know, 7 amps and shit. So it's not so bad, you know. And we try to make the best of it and really, you know, put in the time on this record that a lot of times we don't have. So, I mean, you know, when life gives you lemons, you know, I guess make lemon drops or something. I don't know. Anyway, just try to make the best out of a shitty situation, you know?
No, of course. And that was like, were you guys on the tour circuit for the last release, which was Horror, came out in 2019. So you feel like you didn't fulfill much of the promotional aspect of pushing that new record?
We really did. You know, we did one U.S. tour with Gate Creeper and Necrot. And then, you know, for the next year, we were really planning on focusing on Europe and Asia and Australia and stuff. And, you know, and then we were going to come back and do some more stuff in the States. And you know, that all just sort of went by the wayside. But, you know, that said, we were really lucky because we were able to go out last fall. lucked out and we just hit a sweet spot with with the virus and with everybody's schedules, and we were able to go out and complete a 4-week tour with no cancellations, and nobody got sick, and it was we really did luck out. So I mean, even being able to pull off 2 tours, since 2019, I feel pretty fortunate. And now we have a new record, and we'll be back at it. Annoying neighbors and making a ruckus as much as you fucking can.
Fuck yeah, bro. Some people that don't know, like some of the Exhumed shows are soakingly bloody fun.
They're far from serene, yeah.
Great shit, great shit. And are you playing much material from horror on this tour?
We will be. The beautiful thing about horror is that all the songs are sort of 2 minutes or less. So in the space of time when we could play maybe 2 songs from another album, we could play probably 3 or 4, or maybe even 5 from that one. So we're still going to be squeezing in some of that stuff. But, we're sort of reaching the point where we have a lot of records now. To the Dead is like our 8th album, which is fucking wild to contemplate. And, we try to balance, between the old stuff for the old heads and the new stuff. And, play the hits and try to work in a couple deeper cuts, and so it's getting challenging to squeeze everything in, but I think we have a pretty cool set for this tour. It's got some stuff we haven't played in a long time, and of course new stuff and stuff that probably people won't have heard live because they didn't see us for the last record as well. So I think it should be pretty cool, and we have new production and a bunch of shit in the works, so I think it's gonna be should be a good time.
Right on. And needless to say, I'm sure we'll be visited by Dr. Philthy.
Oh yeah, they'll be checking on everybody, of course. It wouldn't be an Exhumed gig without them, and some sort of splattering and power tool abuse and all that good stuff.
Very cool, very cool. Iron Maiden has Eddie, Megadeth has Vic, Exhumed has Dr. Philthy.
Exactly.
Give us a little bit of a backstory. Like, how did Dr. Philthy just come to like warm hearts?
We had just kind of gotten the band back together in 2011, and we went out with Macabre, and they were doing this bit where they were having people dressed up as serial killers go on stage, like Ted Bundy or Albert Fish or whatever. And Dylan, the man who became Dr. Philthy Mark I, was our driver at the time, and he was doing some of the serial killer stuff just for a lark, and we saw him on stage and we're like, this guy is really fucking good at this. Like, we're underutilizing him, and so we just kind of talked to him like, what do you want to do? Like, what's the deal here? And so we just kind of developed a character over a few tours and really let him take the reins. He had a lot of influences from everything from like silent movies and Buster Keaton and Universal Monsters to like old Looney Tunes, and we were fully into embracing, and it's a cool way to sort of it's just another layer of entertainment, because we're not above pandering to to the audience a little bit so that everybody has a good time, and so that it's not just another group of 4 dudes in jeans headbanging,
Right.
Which is great. I mean, we are 4 dudes in jeans headbanging, but we also have another kind of element because we're all big fans of not just Maiden, but even as far as like Kiss or War or anything else. So if we can bring some of that to the table, I think that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, to a degree, the visual aspect is certainly an added aspect to the live show.
Yeah, and all our songs, they're full of all this imagery. So why not, be more direct about it rather than just sort of gurgling, incomprehensibly about all this stuff. Try to find a way to show, not tell.
And as far as like the lyrical content, like who was that? You mostly responsible, or was that like a collaborated effort throughout the whole band?
Ross and I have always, kind of focused on the lyrics, and I think we have a really good dynamic because we're both really good at editing each other's shit. We've known each other since high school, which at this point is like 30 years ago.
High school, that's awesome.
So we, you know, he knows the things that I do, and you know, he knows them inside and out. And he's like, yeah, you've already done this, or yeah, you don't try to do this, or don't do this again. And it's the same with me with his stuff. You know, I'm always like, this is great, except this, and it's like, oh yeah, that is better. So we have a really good, you know, a really good team there, and we try to, you know, bring out the best in each other, and especially because, you know, we're still singing about blood and guts and rotting bodies and decapitated heads and shit after 30 years, you know. So you got to try to push yourself to stay on your toes, or else it just becomes, you know, a bit repetitive.
And you mentioned Ross. Please send to him a belated birthday from my part.
I will.
Very cool, very cool. And again, we're talking with Matt Harvey, Exhumed, Bay Area gore grind death metal fucking veterans. They're gonna celebrate To the Dead, their newest release through Relapse Records, coming out October 21st. You guys have pretty much been lifers with Relapse Records, man. How's that relationship going with them?
It's going great. You know, it's one of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it situations. And
Right.
you know, the thing is, when Relapse signed us in '98, you know, that no other label of any sort of repute would have pissed on us if we were on fire. So they really, you know, they took a chance on us, and you know, I'd like to think that it paid off for everybody, but it certainly worked out for us. And I think that I like the Relapse aesthetic, because it's not a lot of the stuff that, you know, bigger metal labels like Century Media or Nuclear Blast or whatever, like a lot of the shit that they put out, I think is fucking corny. I mean, they put out a lot of great stuff too, but there's just stuff
I feel you, man.
that makes me roll my eyes. And Relapse,
Totally.
you know, I don't like every band on the label or every record, but I'm like, okay, it doesn't make me roll my eyes, like, fuck, come on.
Yeah,
man.
like it's still heavy. It's still like, you know, really like heavy stuff.
Yeah, or it's really interesting, you know, like Mercure, like that's a fucking interesting artist, you know, and it's not just overproduced, you know, band X in whatever genre, you know. It's like, I mean, Nuclear Blast, I was like fucking Five Finger Death Punch, like, you know, come on, that shit just
like overly commercial stuff. Like it's I know what you mean, man. I totally knew what you mean. But like I said, man, Relapse, much respect to that label, man. Some of my favorite bands are on that label, and I think they had a hand in one of the early compilations back in the day that, you know, really opened up my ears to a lot of bands. I think one of the compilations, I think, was called Contaminated.
Oh yeah, they did a bunch of those. So that was their whole campaign in like the late '90s, early 2000s, was the Contaminated comps and the Contamination tours that we did a couple of back in the day. And that was cool, man.
Fuck yeah, dude. And again, we're talking with Matt Harvey about the new album To the Dead. You had mentioned you had bought on some like past members. How did that work out? What led to that decision, and how was like the dynamic?
It kind of started with a buddy of mine named Neil Bergdahl. He played in Fatalist, which was one of the first like HM2 revival kind of bands, and then he also plays in a really good like shoegaze or dream pop band called Whimsical. And you know, we'll just text each other like, "Oh, dude, you're fucking old." Like, "No, you're fucking old." And he texted me and he's like, "Yeah, you know, it's like 2021's gonna be 30 years since the first Exhumed gig." And I was like, "Fuck, that's crazy." And so we talked about it, and we're like, well, how do we acknowledge that in a year where we can't do any shows and we can't really, like, you know, it's not even that practical for us to be able to hang out together and do that much. And I kind of floated the idea of like, well, what if we ask some guys, you know, from the past incarnations of the band to come on and write a song, you know, because that's, you know, everybody, and we've done it, you know, everybody re-records their old stuff. That was sort of the obvious answer, since we couldn't do like an anniversary show or whatever. And I thought, well, you know, this is a little bit less typical. And, you know, even though we have had a lot of members and a lot of turnover in the lineup, I mean, the overwhelming majority of the guys that we've ever worked with are still like really good friends of mine. So it was just as simple as texting somebody like, "Hey man, you're not doing much, right? Because I'm not doing much. Like, you want to write an Exhumed song?" And they're like, "Wait, really?" And I was like, "Yeah, fuck it." And they're like, "All right, fuck it." And so we had 4, you know, sort of I hesitate to call them guest writers, but for alumni contributions, I guess would be the way to put it. And it was really fun. They're all really talented dudes, and I love their writing. And I kind of warned them. I was like, just to let you know, I'm gonna, I may make some changes, but we'll agree on them before we do it. And it went great, and I was super juiced on all the songs that they contributed. Man, it's some of my favorites on the record.
Right on, and you definitely hear it. Like I said again, that new album, the sound, the songwriting, it's just fucking ripping, man. And I know people are gonna dig this to the dead. How long did the recording process take?
We knew that we had a long time this time around because, again, it would be great when we make another record because I will never have to talk about the pandemic again. But because of the pandemic, all these labels were holding releases, like waiting until bands would be able to tour and this kind of stuff. And so when I talked to the label about the record, they're like, well, look, man, it's always like at least like a 9-month, 10-month lead time, but they're like, it's going to be a lot longer because our schedule is backed up. And, we're in no rush. So just deliver it when it's done. And we started in April, and I think we finished everything in July. Obviously, we weren't working on it 8 hours a day every day, that whole time. But we really, we took our time. We did several different test mixes and really, just took a whole day just to figure out what guitar tones to use. And we knew that we had time, but we knew that we were home, man. We're in our own studio, so it's like nobody's standing over there, making the clock tick or being like, "Time is money, guys." It's like, well, not really in this case. It's just going to be done when we think it's finished. So it was nice to really be able to relax on that and not turn in a record on a tight deadline. I don't want to get used to it because I could see it just taking a year in the future, but it was nice to be able to take a few months, really figure out what we wanted to do.
Very cool. And you had released a couple of videos for this album, right? One was Carbonized, and the other one was Drained of Color.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans of releasing any more videos?
There's one more single that'll come out for the record. I can't remember exactly when, but it's sometime in the next couple of weeks. And I think we're just going to do another lyric type video for it, like we did with Carbonized, just because, it's something that, gives people more incentive to sit there and listen to the whole song and not zone out or whatever while they're streaming it. But, Drained of Color was really the big one that we sort of threw everything at. We wanted to. Yeah. And I think it's probably the best video that Exhumed has made to date. We wanted to do something kind of ambitious and theatrical, and so we kind of just shot our wad on that one. But we're really happy with the way that it came out, and people have seemed to dig it, and it captures the spirit of the album. I think it's gory, fun, morbid, and shows us as the fucking idiots we are. So I think it's pretty good.
And also there was a cameo by Dr. Philthy.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if anybody has a reason to want to murder us, it's him.
Awesome. And for the other one, Carbonized, was that Reefer Madness that you guys used?
Yeah, it's a lot of it's from Reefer Madness, and then there were a couple of other old. Ross put that together, and he was telling me the names of movies, and I think one of them was called Seduction of the Youth or Corruption of the Youth. I can't remember exactly.
I think so. I think it's Corruption of the Youth.
Yeah, and it's it's all these old thinly veiled kind of PSA campaigns to scare people away from smoking weed. And the song is about smoking human body parts to get high. Obviously, there's not a lot of archival footage of that, but Sebastian, our guitar player, wrote the music for that one, and he's a massive stoner. So Ross was like, why don't we make a song about fucking getting stoned? And it was like, oh, perfect. So that became Carbonized.
Hell yeah, man. Stoners in the house will rejoice for that one.
Always.
Very cool. Matt Harvey of Exhumed, To the Dead, out through Relapse on October 21st. I want to thank you for your time, brother. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Is there any last words or anything else that you want to let fans know about the new record, whether like new fans or old fans? What can you tell them?
I mean, first off, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to talk to me and talk about the record, man. I really appreciate it. I'm obviously deeply biased, but I think, this record it's got a lot of, depth and dynamics while still very much being an Exhumed album. So I think, people, if you liked us before, I don't think we've blown it. And I think, I think it's, and I hope other people do too, So I would say, go out and buy several copies on all formats, and or steal it off the internet or whatever, and just make sure you come out to the gigs and get in the front row and you can tell us what you think about it to our face.
Yep. They're about to hit the road on tour, and who are you taking on tour with you?
It's a really cool. It's a very eclectic bill. We've got main support from Holder, who's a new black metal, like kind of raw black metal band that they have a record coming out. I think it's this month on my buddy Dave, his label, $20 Spin. And then we also have Vitriol, who's like a super aggressive, like kind of. I mean, they are a technical death metal band, but they don't sound like what I would consider like your typical technical bleep bloop 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 noises. It's not that kind
right.
of tech. It's really dark and aggressive and interesting. And then we have two openers. Each one's doing half of the tour. The first half is with Molder from Chicago, who's very much an old school, really gross death metal band. They had a record come out on Prosthetic called Engrossed in Decay. They rule. And then the second half is the show's being opened by Castrator, who just had a record come out on Dark Descent, my buddy Matt's. And Castrator also features Robin Mason, who plays with me in Gruesome. So they're old friends of ours. It's really brutal. It's an all-girl band. I get, guess you're
wow.
That's just the Castrator part, So it's an all-girl band. It's fucking really, really great death metal, old pals. So it's gonna be really fun to get on the road with them. And I think it's gonna be just a good show where every band brings something really different to the table. And hopefully there's something for everybody. And people buy a lot of beer and buy a lot of merch and have a good fucking time.
Fuck yeah. And I think you guys are coming through LA around December, I believe.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the last dates. I can't remember exactly which date LA is, but it's probably like the
last couple of them.
15th. Yeah. We're finishing up. We got a good strong home stretch in LA, Oakland, and Sacramento. So, the old stomping grounds for the grand finale.
Sure. Yeah, and I know like people go crazy when you guys play out here. So definitely gonna be there, catch you guys, and I'll say what's up. Maybe we'll smoke with Fatty or throw some beers when we get together.
Sounds great, man. Look forward to it.
Very cool. And Matt Harvey, Exhumed, To the Dead, Relapse Records, October 21st. Give a horns and a cheers to all the guys in the Exhumed camp for me, and especially Dr. Philthy.
Of course.
And safe travels, my friend. You guys be safe on the road, and we'll catch you soon. All right. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks, bud. Cheers.
Cheers.